There's another one of these archetypal stories in Scripture, which on the surface makes absolutely no sense. And yet it's a deep, powerful story. It's in Judges book 11. And it's the story of, you can pronounce that name, Jephthah's daughter. Okay, Jephthah was a king. And this is the story. There was a Jewish king, and he goes to war. And things are going badly. He's losing the war. And so what he does, he makes a vow to God. He says, look, if you let me win this war, I will kill on the altar of sacrifice the first person I see when I get back to my kingdom. So God lets him win the war. Then when he gets back to his kingdom, he crosses the border, and he's saddened because the first person he meets is his young daughter. She's just in the bloom of her youth. And he said, well, that's just bad. He said, I promised God I would kill the first person I see, but now it's you. I can't kill you. The daughter says, no, we can do this, but there's one thing. See, there's one thing. She said, there's a condition. She said, now I'm going to die a virgin. I'm going to die non-consummated. Said, so I need 40 days to go into the desert with my maiden companions, and I need, literally says in Hebrew, to bewail my virginity, to bewail the fact that I'm going to die in an unfinished life. So he gives her permission. She goes out to the desert with her maiden companions, and they howl to the moon and do some ritual acts and so on. And then she comes back and dies on the altar of sacrifice. And that's the end of the story. Isn't it just a wonderful story? The word of the Lord, you know. It's patriarchal, it's awful, and so on. You know, if you take it literally, you know, with Old Testament stories, many of the stories, you always put a disclaimer. You know how in the movies they say, no real horses died making this film, you know. No real people die in these stories. It's a powerful story. She says, I need to go and I need to mourn because now I'm going to die a virgin. I'm going to die inconsummate. You know, I don't want to die in that state. So she does, and then she's ready to die. This isn't a story about patriarchy or something. The story of all of us, unless we grieve our unfinished lives, we're all going to die in that way. You know, we need to mourn and grieve our unfinished, non-consummate lives, whether you're celibate or married or whatever. You know, as Karl Rahner said, nobody has the finished symphony. And all of us are going to die with just a whole lot of unfinished stuff. And you won't get to finish it. We need to grieve it. Alice Miller, the great Swiss psychologist of the last century, in her, and this is a monumental book, her book called The Drama of the Gifted Child. The Gifted Child is used as the second half of our lives have to be given over to grieving precisely what didn't turn out, to all the things that went wrong and so on. So you can die a very happy person. You can die miserable and angry and still grasping to finish your life. You know, we have to grieve our unfinishedness. You know, when I do retreats with priests and sisters, and I always do a talk on this, and I'll say, you know, because we take a vow of celibacy. So we're never going to be married, we're never going to have kids, we don't have sex. I said, have you ever grieved that? Have you ever ritually grieved your celibacy? If you grieved your virginity? I remember one time one priest said, I like that. He said, they went to desert. Las Vegas is a desert. He said, I'm going to go out for 40 days and 40 nights. And he says, bewail my virginity before I die. Okay. No, it's true. See, if we don't grieve it, it's going to snake bite us. Not just the celibates, it's all of us. It's a powerful story. See, there's no real people die here. Again, it's metaphorical. It's metaphor. It's archetypal. This is at the roots of our soul. See, these stories speak to your soul. And that's also why they put sharp images. You know, after the coffee break, I want to just tell you one great fairy tale story. But we enter the story, but all stories, enter a story, not even so much initially say, what does the story mean? Let a detail grab you, you know. And why is that detail speaking to you? Because that means it's triggering some emotion, and that emotion is triggering some experience you had. That means, and that's your string, that's your lead into the story, you know. So this story, I need to go to the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and bewail my virginity. Well, there's a string to follow, you know. Or, you know, like, what always grab like a detail. What grabs you here? Because what grabs you, it might not be the most important part of the story, but it'll be something that means you have an emotional trigger there, and that emotional triggers is connected to some experience, which we probably haven't processed, but the story can help us to process and so on. So that's the power of stories. Analytical stuff, which I also teach, has its own power, but sometimes only a story can draw it out, can touch that inside of us.